Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Power of Knowing Forum's LinkedIn Live episode 160. Today, we are having a discussion on the topic of cyber crisis and cyber crisis to resolution. How AI is revolutionizing incident management, for which we have Sanjeev Nadgir, who is a CEO and a cybersecurity expert. Without further ado, let's bring our esteemed speaker to the podcast event. Hi, Sanjeev, how are you?
Hi everyone, very good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are.
Welcome to our show. Sandeep, to start with, now incident management has been crux of any business, again in specific to IT.
Indeed,
Uh, coming coming to our journey of incident management, do you see AI has made a pivotal difference during a crisis? And what were the key takeaways from that kind of an experience? Because incident management was one thing which was very manual, very tedious process that used to happen earlier. Now coming with AI, what would be the pivotal difference that it will make during this crisis is what we want to understand from you, Sandeep. Over to you.
very interesting thought. In fact, having implemented security in a bunch of organizations and now uh, consulting for other organizations, one of the things that we security folks always need is, or in fact, even if I would talk about a layman, decision making is always good when you have the right kind of data at the right time. So that is what AI does. It gives you, it is very important, of course, to plan out how your data should be and what sort of data should come to you. But AI now gives us that important information when we do the decision making. And this has changed the way in which we do decision making or we perform actions in the world of security to either block something, allow something, to put very simply.
Sorry about that. I was talking on mute.
No worries.
Can we walk us through the powerful use case where AI was instrumental in identifying and resolving a security incident faster than in normal or a traditional way?
Very interesting. In fact, so one of the cases was where a VIP user, an important user of an organization, seemed to have had a breach of one of the accounts that they hadn't used in a very long time. But one of the data breaches revealed sensitive credentials of that important person, and we sort of course, when there are critical people who sort of become a victim, and we do not know if they're really a victim or not, directly or indirectly. It could have been some old hack and now the data is out there. So of course it was immediate panic of sorts, but then we tried to understand how impacted is somebody, and that is where in fact AI helped a lot. It gave exact information saying what were the timelines of the breach, how old was the information. And one of the things that all leaders, all CXOs today do is they are very smart about security. They keep changing something as basic as changing their passwords, having very strong passwords. So these cases, first of all, helped us directly get in touch with the affected person. Luckily, there was nothing impacted. We got to know that the information was pretty old, but the sort of information we got in time helped us not change our keys, not send out emails, not do some sort of quarantine exercise. So a lot of heavy lifting was averted because of smart information available in time. So you're on mute again.
I was on mute, sorry. Sorry about it. I went on mute again. Sorry. How has this particular example shaped the approach in managing crisis and moving forward? Because see, traditionally, as you rightly said, we lift up so many things when we see an incident happening.
True.
and whether it is false positive or is that a real this incident,
Mhm.
very difficult for us to identify. Is there any particular example you shaped approach managing cyber crisis moving forward?
Uh, Interesting use case. In fact, to make it a little more simple for whoever is listening to us, imagine you wanting to make a decision of what food you will order today, and something, some element gives you options, saying, "Do you feel like Chinese? This restaurant offers good Indian Chinese. Do you want South Indian meals? This restaurant offers this." And for me, then it is just click of a button and then orders are placed. So when you
Hmm.
bring that sort of an intelligence into a use case, I have a very interesting use case where there was some sort of an insider threat where uh, there was some suspicion. So we humans are instinctive. So somebody had some instinct saying in their organization maybe something would have happened, some sort of an insider thread where information was traded to a competitor. And in that case, we had good amount of data to back when the user had used, what sort of uploads in what sort of drives, what sort of public forums, what chat happened, what was the geographical traversal of the asset of the user, which city, which place. Luckily, all of this, so we could make this decision. We could do some sort of threat hunting to understand something would have gone wrong, simply because we had good amount of data over a period of time, where we could then take a call saying something seems off. And post we identified that this seems to be a case where it is an incident. We could further drill down to logs and understand through forensics that something was indeed wrong, and appropriate action was taken on the insider threat.
See, again, good insights there. Now, when we are in an incident, especially in cyber crisis, cyber security crisis mode, what happens is the communication and the empathy part in the communication gets lost actually when we are in a crisis. Okay, when dealing with cyber security crisis, how important is empathy in communication, which affects stakeholders? And how can these AI tools support or hinder that human touch during sensitive times? Because there is a sensitive issue that is going on, and
Mhm.
it has a lot of impact that can bring down the systems around the production environment. But you'll have to have that communication in a format that it does not put people under pressure on a very
Indeed.
high scope and still they perform in that pressure. So how and centric when you talk about human empathy and human centric security.
Superb topic again. So I'll quote, I'll speak about this example that was very famous. We all receive forwards and reels these days.
Yeah, yeah.
So a customer reaches out to the customer support portal and they say, I'm hacked. My credentials are gone, or maybe I lost
Hmm.
my credit card. And not so intelligent AI says, congratulations, let me help you with that. So, a very simple example like this, and imagine real-time attacks, real cyber crisis, where things are very intense. You're trying to understand what to do, what whom to inform. Of course, we have policies and processes in place. We have incident response plans. We test them. We check our readiness very often. But one of the things that is very pivotal is the way in which you communicate.
Hmm.
So, first is how good is your AI in communicating through empathy? And there's no other way to know about it till you've used it a bunch of times. The AI model is also trained to churn out information which is uh, in line with expectations of empathy, communication, right set of actionable communication. And in fact, there's been a lot of development around this area where we see a lot of models being very helpful in communication. However, the human element is always super important. Uh, the models in which, so because of AI, a lot of things can be automated, especially when an incident responder, a human, is behind a console, bunch of screens trying to do something. the heavy lifting of communication can be lifted from the incident responder, and they can focus on more technical aspects, more cyber crisis management aspects. So, very powerful, very helpful, but yes, has to be correctly checked and used from time to time.
Again, taking that pointer, because for a technical person,
Mhm.
okay, empathy means a lot of things because that guy is under stress and he's in that situation. When a breach happens and affects the real people, how do
Mhm.
you balance the speed of AI with the need of human empathy?
Super interesting. So, so a lot of information is churned out. It is very important to first, all of us incident responders need to ensure that we keep calm. Without maintaining that sort of balance, there's no information that can help you to take actions. I quote this very often, not my lines, but keep calm and calm se calm is what you should do. Uh, all of this information that you get, it is important to prioritize them. So, for example,
Hmm.
in case of an incident, you'll need to understand which teams are to be contacted first. Should you first contact the cloud team to quarantine the sort of incident that has happened, or do you prioritize and communicate with the users, saying, "Hey, because of this incident, there could be an aftermath where you would receive communication saying so and so has happened." Now, again, specific communication is very important. I needn't send bursts of information where unnecessary people might panic. So, empathy, at the same time, focused communication is something that is very important for this technical person. Uh, and when they try to communicate this information, they also need to process what they are doing. So, am I really looking at the right space? Maybe nothing is wrong with the cloud servers or the EC2 instances or containers. Maybe something that is wrong is with the WAF, which is on the perimeter. Maybe it is just an external element which has messed my internal setup. So, it is very important to prioritize where to look, and the best way is plan.
Hmm.
Have people there are a lot of communities, forums, where people do share such information. So once I know what the plan should be, I can now focus or balance the kind of empathy I need to have when I communicate with people. At the same time, I know what my job is.
Now, with AI being around, there is vast amount of data that can be quickly available. But how do you ensure decisions it makes during incident strike a balance between speed and accuracy? Because AI can process a lot of data as we know,
And
quickly. So, how do we look at the balance between speed and accuracy with the data available with us?
first off, it is very important to ensure the right sort of data is getting into your AI models. Minimize what is not required, and try and plan the feed that you feed to your AI model or AI technology or solution, because a lot of times unnecessary information, and the AI also will have a learning journey where
Hmm.
it trains over a period of time. It takes inputs. For example, what would I do about access logs? There could be a common pantry area where people are swiping their access cards. A lot of that information may not be really necessary. Sorry. So choose what you feed to your information system. That way, when it churns out results, which gives you models, suggestions, recommendations, they will be a little more sensitive and actionable. Accuracy, data accuracy is super important in these cases, which is where try and understand if there is some sort of prompt engineering, or if your AI model is vulnerable or exposed to some sort of model theft, where people will keep querying the model, it will keep throwing out information. For example, there's this very famous story that people tell when they talk about AI.
Hmm.
You tell AI 1 plus 1 is 11 about 1,000 times, eventually AI will accept that 1 plus 1 is 11, and it will tell you that misinformation. So all of this is very critical, and there's no chance to have a failure. It's very important to be very aware AI is super powerful. When you're using it, its accuracy also needs to be maintained.
Having said that, have you faced any challenges in AI decisions, driven decisions, and required human intervention? Sanjeev?
A very interesting point. In fact, there was a time when, in the initial days when AI started improving or maybe being integrated with security, I had my reservations. I wasn't very sure that the data churned. I mean, I still don't use ChatGPT to form my emails or write my documents. I've got certain reservations of mine. So the initial days when data was being fed to these systems, they did churn out something that seemed to be very irrelevant. So the initial days, I was a little apprehensive about using such technology, but only later I understood the more you train it, it becomes better. So training it in the right way, it is just like tra- training your trainees, your juniors, or maybe raising a kid for that matter, where you try and feed the right information, let them know what is good, what is bad, and then eventually, when you have a good trained model, there are no biases in in the outcomes. That is where things take a good turn, and I see that happening now. Things are better. Of course, training is needed in every case, in any case.
No, training is never going to go out because whether you bring it or you bring a AI model, but the AI model also needs to be trained to a certain extent to perform
True.
perfectly. Now, coming on to that point, see, there has been vast AI-driven incident managements that are happening, but how are the companies facing them and integrating them with their incident management? And how they can avoid some of the incident management pitfalls while they are integrating AI. So, any thoughts around it?
Interesting thought. In fact, the great setup of our discussion as well. When I integrate information that goes into my AI models, I'll need to pick and choose what my priority and severity and criticality of the asset that I integrate with the system is. I need to set boundaries. I need to plan phases in which first I look for any scenarios where I may have possibly wrong information or not so helpful information churned out through the AI. Second, when I'm integrating my systems, logs, information, data, it is important to also design. Now, again, a lot of people, so there's this saying, "Nachna jane angan teda." So if I do not know my environment very well, if I do not layer my architecture, layer my information, right from privileged users to regular users, entitlements, the sort of layered architecture in terms of where should my production servers lie, and even in production, how should my critical servers and applications behave or be placed, and non-critical applications and behaviors be placed. So it is very important to ensure that you are on the right security landscape in terms of architectural compartmentalization, and then integrate this information into the AI driven cyber crisis management setup. Otherwise, you're starting on the wrong foot, and that will definitely lead to disappointments. Maybe you've purchased a very good tool and you haven't really checked your design. Your design itself is flawed. Your workflows aren't really appropriate, and it doesn't really take a lot of efforts. There are a lot of frameworks available. There's a good amount of information available today where I can at least look at an architectural perspective, at least at 400 feet, 800 feet, 1000 feet level, where I
Hmm.
see if my architecture needs a little more reshaping. Am I churning out too many instances? There is too much of vertical scaling, horizontal scaling. Am I creating and destroying too many user entities, instances? Where are my operations today? Is it in a decent shape? And only then I can feed this information to SIEM, and then it does magic for you in a bit of time.
I think very well put across. But when we start integrating, you are there any common, or rather than saying common, or norms that often go unnoticed but have a significant impact on the AI of incident management? Because when we look at, as you told right now, the tools that we are looking at, and if the architect it is not trained based on your architecture, it may throw out something which is not relevant, right? So, how do you think, or are there any unknowns that often go unnoticed and which can have significant impact? Is what I want to understand from you, Sanjay.
Very interesting. So, systems being systems churn a lot of data, a lot of information. It is important to understand what sensitivity of information you are sharing. For example, if I'm using AI for fraud detection,
Hmm.
what level of information is being fed? Am I feeding it information of my clients' financial holdings? Uh, so again, this sort of is the borderline of data minimization and privacy aspects, where
Yeah,
feed that information and keep it just limited enough. Sometimes what we tend to do is there are so many requests that come to the technical people, be it application operations, server operations, that they tend to probably overlook the depth of the request. What does the request say? Integrate the system. All right, I've integrated. Uh,
hmm.
like Russell Peters says, take it and go. So this becomes a little challenging when you try and see uh, when you grade things in a certain way. It becomes a little. Uh, so one of the things that you need to really be mindful of is the kind of log level you share. So there are different log levels, like there is log level 5, 6, what sort of information is being fed. So most of the cases that I've seen where things go wrong has typically been this, where we overshare or we configure way too much, where actionable intel doesn't really come out.
Yeah. Coming to the next point is how, with AI transforming incident management, where do you see the role of human intelligence and
Wow.
okay evolving, and what skills do you think will be indispensable for security professions in the next new era?
So many ideas bursting, so many thoughts bursting. Super important. In fact, a very fancy topic to talk about. Information is so much. You go to the internet, you search something in your browser, there will be some AI based response. In your regular Google search, your Google also prompts, is this what you're looking for?
Yeah,
Then after a few articles, you'll also see sub a pre-guessed question. So for example, if I Google PQC, post quantum cryptographic algorithms, first Google will tell me what it is, second it will tell me what are the approved standards lists and all of that. So in that domain, it is very important for us humans to understand where to put intelligence and where not to.
mm,
There are some things where you needn't question things. I am not going to question TCP/IP, IEEE formats now. I'm not going to over-engineer. So,
yeah,
in fact, most common set of skills that humans require today are common sense related aspects, and where a lot of information that I see people probably not focusing on or not upskilling on is the design concepts. We humans are always required, and AI will help us with the information required. It'll set us up. It will set us up for that victory where we can then take the final shot and win the World Cup.
yeah,
It is important to understand that I need to be aware of my surroundings. If I can't be a security analyst and say I do not know about application architecture, or I cannot say I do not know about privacy laws just because I'm into something else in the security domain. So slightly wide expanse of know-how, and to have a little bit of trust in the system yet question. So trust and verify when the information is given to you by AI. Just because it says block this system, don't just block
mm,
it because it might be a legitimate system.
yeah. I think again there is a human intervention that is needed when you. Uh, See, I was going through the Microsoft Copilot part. when I was
Hmm.
meeting them in one of their conferences. So we were talking on some case scenario where it does all the analysis and the final outcome is what is the decision that it says. These are three scenarios. Which one would you like to opt for? Kind of. So I think that is where the whole AI is bringing us to the analytic part and leaving us there. Now, how can professionals future proof their careers with AI continues to advance? What could be their requirements? How do they scale up themselves is another point that I want to understand with the security domain in specific.
Very interesting. Uh, so does it may be very natural to resist or be scared of something that has come in new.
Hmm.
Another one of the reels that was shared said, "I do not want AI to do my job. I want AI to make me coffee so I can do my job." So something pivotal is required to be understood by organizations and individuals both.
Hmm.
Leadership needs to understand, and there is a good amount of understanding in the leadership saying, I will use AI
Hmm.
as a supportive tool for my people to do their job. And when I am doing my job across different skill levels, I may be a lawyer, an architect, a cybersecurity professional, IT professional, whatever I am, it is important for me to understand what to look for because there's an ocean of information available. And what I, as a cybersecurity professional, should learn and would recommend others to learn as well are these different frameworks. So there's the MITRE framework. There are a lot of NIST frameworks which focus on, first of all, how AI governance should be done, how you should focus on governing what your element is. For example, if my job is around developing applications, my job is around setting up computers, servers. I need to understand where am I headed in the direction and how can I govern it. For example, if I'm taking too long for one job, I need to be aware that this can be improved. One, offload repetitive things to AI, and then you take the smart call saying, this week, I will configure 17 systems and not 20 like I used to.
Hmm.
So that human intelligence is important. AI can get exhausted and it can recover, but we humans need to be focused on our task and keep ourselves sharp and away from exhaustions.
What are the trends in the incident management should the organizations of today be prepared, right? And
Mhm.
how can business leaders support their teams adopting AI-driven solutions? Because you find AI solutions very, very wide variety in terms of for varied purposes. But how do we look at as an organization from the top management perspective, integrate and see it as a common platform for all security? Because currently the tools that we see are specific in nature for one piece of work. Now, is there anything that we can strategize on that? And do you think there's something that we can look at as the business functions looking at it?
Very interesting. In fact, there's a lot of uses, like you rightly said. There is Gen AI, there is AI in security. Uh, Usage you see of AI are varied and dispersed.
Yeah.
So one of my recommendations to leaders is prioritize, and like they always have been doing, have a little bit of prioritization in terms of both benefits to business as well
Hmm.
as bettering security operations, technical operations for your workforce. This helps the workforce gain the set of empowerment that they need. It gives them decision making abilities. They get better at their work just because now they have uh, good information to work on instead of just scattering through sheets, through dashboards, through consoles, or those Slack alerts, email alerts that they would have gotten. Uh, it is important to prioritize again all of these aspects. Leadership has been investing. Should they plan better in terms of adoption of AI? It will be a very helpful aspect to the organization as well as the individuals utilizing AI.
No, we are talking too much of AI, actually speaking. But what would be the cost implications? Because when I want to bring up a AI system into my environment, there are
Mhm.
a lot of costs that will get involved. For a small and medium business unit, that might not be the right way, or they not have an extensive cyber security budgets to look at.
Mhm.
How do we look at AI in incident management without feeling overwhelmed by its complexity and still get the small and medium businessman to use it as a tool? Because over the period, it is essential, but at the moment, could their budgets not be there for them to bring it up? So, what is your input for such people where they have small and medium sized businesses without much of a budgets in for cyber security?
Understood. Super important for us to focus. I mean, there's a lot of uh, growth in terms of market share where we see a lot of smaller organizations wanting to adopt this, grow
Yeah.
in this. There are a lot of SaaS models available. There are a lot of outsourced models available. And when I say that, I intend, so there's always this apprehension saying my data shouldn't go on a third party platform, my data should not go on a managed service of sorts. But the advantage of doing this, and a caution as well. So the advantage is there's already so much of heavy lifting that your people do. Uh, Aspects that where there is no intelligence required, you could probably offload it from your teams, from your organization. While utilizing third party resources, there are a lot of governance aspects also that are being offered. For example, when Gen AI is being used, local dictionary should be used as one of the offerings that these companies bring in. They have models for a lot of smaller organization where you could start small and use only use this only for the critical aspects of your environment of a network. You needn't implement AI all across. It needn't be a big bang. Start small. Understand where you're really. So there'll be a lot of operational workload right now on your workforces. Understand where are they utilizing or other getting utilized more, and try to see if you can solve that problem to begin with through a smaller initiation of utilizing artificial intelligence. There are SaaS models available again, like I mentioned. You could offload a part of what you didn't do to some sort of managed security aspects and focus on more intelligent things. Now, I will make that roadmap as a human for my organization, saying next year we'll focus on GDPR. The year after that, we'll focus on ISO so and so. These are more important. I
Hmm.
will architect data minimization. I will implement data masking. These are critical strategic discussions. Other heavy lifting can be offloaded, and it is a working model with a lot of security and governance controls in place.
Do you think these challenges are technical, cultural, or both? How businesses can address them?
Very interesting. I think it starts with the culture.
Okay.
It is very important to be a little more open about how things are shaping.
Hmm.
Nobody imagine years ago. I did not imagine a situation where there weren't blade servers around. But now, where do you see data centers except for a few sectors and verticals because of regulations? Everything is on cloud. I don't remember somebody talking about the OSI layers or models. Things are changing now. We talk about cloud architecture, cloud fundamentals. So it is going to come. It is already here. All of us will be transitioned onto that AI
Hmm.
driven world. Let us be open. Let us be acknowledging of the fact that something good is happening. At the same time, be vigilant and watchful of how much of that are we using, and while we are using that newness, how much of information are we giving out which may hamper us.
Oh, very important point there. Okay, now coming into the loads of data that we are having here. Okay, AI is, AI is great at crunching data, but how do you look at the ethical aspects of the AI part coming into picture when making decisions? Because decisions on cybersecurity incidents that could always look at some of the pointers where you touch on privacy part, right? There could be some privacy PII information that could come in. Then at times even the compliance things
Oh
are
yes.
looked at. And when compliance and privacy is looked at, they could be even touching the employment piece of which when they miss the both of privacy and compliance. How do you look at addressing these kind of ethical implications while taking AI made decisions?
Very interesting. So fundamentals. I'll go back to the fundamentals. Always focus on sorry, acquiring only what is required. Do not go deeper into what is not required. For example, I give an example of fraud detection services where you fed more information than required. Uh, Privacy of an individual is super important. So when information comes in, mask it, uh, minimize the sort of information that you collect. Again, uh, very important to try and understand that it's not just a joke. It's not just a guidance from a friend or some industry expert. There are laws around this with heavy penalties. So it is very important for us to also understand that when I implement these checks and models, I also keep in mind what are the requirements. Now, again, one of the good things that come from these laws are they also lay out guiding principles for us to implement. Uh, so when you go back to the design level, first of all, the sort of AI that you adopt, if it is something that is built in house, of course, you have more control. You can understand what sort of AI models or ML models will I be utilizing. And when all of these multiple models of ML and AI put a data out eventually, what sort of information am I storing for a period? How soon am I churning data that is not required? How recent is my data, and how much of what I'm holding and giving is of essence? So, for example, I needn't have a lot of information. So, when I train my model, I will collect a lot of information. Now, I needn't have a lot of it held back with me based on regulations. Have the models ready in its executional way. When you execute it, uh, the the metadata that comes in, you could always churn it,
Hmm.
and at the same time also have all the required checks in place, data subject rights, to understand if your systems are prone to prompt engineering, and all of these checks and basics are something that go a long way in ethical practices and privacy focus in the world of AI.
Now, aligning to the business part of it,
Mhm.
how incident management systems align with broader businesses' objectives, such as protecting brand reputation, customer trust, and long term sustainability.
Wow, interesting. I can think of a bunch of things where brand reputation being withheld goes hand in hand when it comes to AI. Now,
Hmm.
uh, first of all, it is important to understand what sort of a brand you are. Are you a brick and mortar store? Are you a
Hmm.
tech company? Are you a retail business? Are you a bank? Are you a power energy sector? Based on this, it is important to understand what sort of risk can you take, what sort of how much can you afford to respond to an incident, how much
Hmm.
time can you afford to have an incident recurring over a period of time. Now, when you have this information, and at the same time when you try to uh, uh, build some sort of capability, what you also tend to overlook is how much of uh, the steps that are taken designed are towards the brand. Now, for example, if I am somebody who is selling products
Hmm.
to the end customer, I also need to use AI to understand if there is somebody replicating my product. Is there some entity which has a similar logo like mine? Is there somebody who is having darknet dark web deep web chats about my brand? Now, when I'm internally aware of what sort of incidents I am facing internally, from the external world. I also need to expand and understand how the dark web, deep web is affecting my presence, my brand. Because a lot of smaller brands which become unicorns eventually, there have been a lot of chatter in dark web, which did not, which weren't detected, and they could not have plans in place, and they eventually fell prey to it. So super
Hmm.
important to have both internal and external outlook in a very wide scale, including deep web, dark web monitoring, trying to understand who's talking what about you. If a competitor is talking or making plans which may hamper you, affect you. I mean, businesses are good. People are ethical these days, but it's always good to be a little paranoid and
Careful.
finicky when it comes to security.
Okay, great point there. Now, going back to again my first question, how do you underestimate technology strategies that you think will raise their prominence in next 3 to 5 years?
Wow. Okay. I've been excited about this topic since about the last couple of years. This is around quantum resilience and crypto agility.
Hmm.
So these two aspects. So since quantum computing is there, I mean, to dumb it down, whatever encryptions we use today can really go for a toss. Whatever we are trying to build, it's definitely a powerful tool to help us process things faster. But at the
Hmm.
same time, high levels or high speeds of processing can break our security down. That is one thing that I'm super interested about. Crypto agility is where, let's say, you get compromised. It's okay. Somebody uh, attacked and you went back
Silence
to.
your name. Yeah.
Absolutely. So how soon can you spring back? And it's not just about rotating keys very often. It is also about having post quantum cryptography implemented. I think NST released three such protocols
Okay.
back in 2022. One I remember is Falcon because it was a very cool name, and there were two other protocols, algorithms, which could really help people implement PQC. Very complicated tech, but it is something
Hmm.
that we also need to understand that we've got to prepare for it now, because as we sit here, somebody is using quantum computing to do a lot of malicious activities.
Right. Right. Now, I think see what I see is when we look at uh, protecting cybersecurity, but on the other contrary, you look at even the attackers are using AI. So
Ah, yes.
there's a, there is always a pointer that you try something, they use a better tool, and we start looking at defending them. So AI is one way a boon to many of the things that are there for us, but the same tool the attackers are using, and they can bring in much more uh, attacks to us, and that could hamper in that thing. Crisis often teaches us more than success, right? So can you share a time when a AI driven approach did not go as expected in a cybersecurity incident management, and what are your experiences, and how can those be turned into some kind of lessons learned stuff?
In my experience, luckily, nothing has gone absolutely wrong or has been very distasteful whenever I've used this technology.
Hmm.
However, the initial phases when you deploy a technology, the sort of accuracy that it churns out, I've seen a lot of inaccurate results,
Okay.
which made me even question if I'm in the right direction. But with just a slight change in the approach in how you design things, how you build things, goes a long way. In fact, so that is how I changed my process around the way in which I was approaching this technology. Uh,
Hmm.
Took it in phases. It is very important to take things in phases, and I think one of the things. So when you spoke about the hacking community using uh, AI to attack you, it is super important to go back to your basics. Do not overshare. Have zero trust in place. Understand that security monitoring is important. We may not have things as crazy as they do. They are geniuses, hats off to them. But we can use our genius in building systems that do not expose too much of information or attack surface.
Very insightful, I think. Now, again, coming back to resilience, How can organization foster a culture of resilience in their incident management, especially integrating cutting edge AI technology? What role does leadership play here, which can make or break a situation, right? Because leadership can say no to certain things and things can go right. So, how do you make resilient incident management as a culture?
Super sensitive topic for a lot of organizations. In fact, it is very important to understand that building brands, building organizations, growing is just like walking up on an
Hmm.
escalator which is coming down. So if you
Okay.
stop, you go down to the bottom. You always need to
Hmm.
make that continuous improvement. Uh, it's
Kind of plan, do, check, act kind of a thing, I think, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is
Okay.
important to empower the workforce through certain fixed budgets, trying and utilizing. So, what the leadership, I'm sure they understand, but also need to keep in mind is by enabling this, you continue on the path up that escalator. There's no scope for us to take a step down because a brand is building, a brand's reputation and market share is always questioned when you do not have proper enablement in terms of technology.
With this, I think what impact will business continuity play here when an AI driven systems and stakeholders' confidence during a cyber crisis? Can you share an example which helped you to mitigate or damaged trust restored?
Interesting. So, luckily, touch wood, there haven't been direct real life scenarios, but during one of the simulations,
Hmm.
we were performing some sort of checks or simulation for a client,
Okay.
and thanks to sort of the BCP plan that they had, we
Hmm.
try to run it. We try to see creating an incident in one place and seeing if there's a good amount of, first of all, incident response, and then the call tree required to generate quarantine
Hmm.
solution to this incident, and then at the same time have some sort of backup as well. uh, it was a simulation. We had a lot of learning, saying we could have done better planning on these BCP aspects, and business continuity being one of the most critical aspects. Showed that using a model to run the country really helped in understanding and simulating real life scenarios, because not many a times you might expect flood in a dry area. So
Hmm.
not many times you would expect a cloud setup to go crazy, and you requiring to have your DR site in place or kicking back up as primary. But it is important to simulate this. It is just one wrong thing that can really bring things down. So super important to have simulations done, but with real life scenarios, which really will affect your setup.
Yeah, that kind of a planning is, you see, I think when you have a DR site, it has to be looked at testing and doing thorough checks whether, in case of a real incident, will the DR systems be available for us to take. Now, with that, organizations' priority to ensure that AI systems contribute to both operational and resilience, uh, stakeholder transparency. What is your take on it?
I think one of the best ways in which I needn't put too much of time and effort and still get information by running scenarios is
Hmm.
using AI. And it is important for me to keep my stakeholders apprised, saying, hey, because of these activities, your function or your department or your team looks a little more vulnerable
Hmm.
to these sort of information. So I needn't keep information with me because I have access to that dashboard which gives me AI results. It is very important to have sessions, tabletop exercises, where you bring in the transparency about the real check, a reality check that you could give to your stakeholders, your different teams, and then have them prepared for a scenario where you can have a better collaboration and you eventually mitigate the cyber crisis or technology crisis.
Can you tell me an impact on business continuity and stakeholder confidence in case if it is affected?
When things go wrong, that is where you start questioning a lot of things,
Okay.
and confidence goes for a toss. You confide in a technology, in a system, to try and understand how can I better my planning, my operations, my PCDA. One wrong thing can really set the confidence level very low. But at the same time, it is important to spring back. Remember, we are talking about resilience. So we will have faults, we will have flaws, but fault correction and springing back is very important, which is where uh, going forward is super important. There will be failures. You will feel a little less confident. There is help around. You can talk to forums, talk to people, and bring in the right sort of information required to further your plan, and then not be so doubtful about yourself.
Okay. I think with this, I have to summarize on some of the notes that I've been taking on the topic that we've been discussing. Okay. So, what we started, an interesting topic today is on cyber crisis and to resolution. And how do we look at AI being a revolutionary part for incident management is the topic that we have done. So I would like to summarize here. We started with experience driven insights and lessons learned, and then we followed up with real world use cases, empathy and human centric security. We spoke about decision making, where we spoke about speed versus accuracy, right? Some of the common AI driven incident management pitfalls that we looked at, how AI can be uh, playing a role in terms of human intelligence. Then we had some AI trends and strategies that we should look at, and we spoke about how small businesses can adopt AI in incident management. Some challenges on friction points that AI implementation can face, right? And with some of the ethical implications and decision making pointers, aligning AI with business objectives, which is very crucial for taking up any of the new implementations, especially with AI coming in. And we also spoke some of the pointers where future trends and what would be required for us to be prepared for what is next. Some crisis and failures were discussed. Some resilient incident management culture also was discussed with, and how business continuity and stakeholder confidence can be restored. These are the pointers that we discussed today. Sanjeev, it's been great having you on the show today. Thank you for making it for us. And we would like to thank the audience for being part of it. Hope you found this discussion valuable, and thank you for joining us. We You can follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We predominantly stream from LinkedIn to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Insta. So you can see our episodes there. Link YouTube has all the episodes of the previous podcast that we have done. Our next topic for the episode 161 is unicorn to ghost startup opportunity to build right with Regenesis is what we are having at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow IST. Looking forward to see you again. Good day. Bye for now. Thank you, Sanjeev. It's been
Thank
great
you.
having you on the session.
Had a
Bye
very
for now.
fabulous time. Thanks a lot. Very insightful. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.